Please like and subscribe to the channel if you find this video interesting and useful. Give me more ideas you want me to make. Enjoy watching the video. The Manhattan skyline, a glittering tapestry of ambition and anonymity, was a constant backdrop to the lives of Ethan and Emma Carter. At 25, they were identical in age, but diametrically opposed in every other conceivable way. Their shared luxury apartment in Dumbo, Brooklyn, a posthumous inheritance that offered stunning views of the East River and the iconic bridge, served less as a home and more as a battleground for their conflicting philosophies. Ethan, the elder twin by a mere 7 minutes, was a creature of logic, algorithms, and meticulously planned routines. His world was the crisp, sterile glow of his multiple monitors, the intricate dance of code, and the quiet satisfaction of solving complex engineering problems. A senior software engineer at a cutting-edge tech firm, he thrived on precision and predictability. His social circle was a constellation of online forums and the occasional, obligatory work function where he would linger awkwardly at the periphery, sipping lukewarm seltzer. Ethan was an introvert by nature and by choice, finding solace in the silent hum of his servers rather than the cacophony of human interaction. His wardrobe consisted of sensible neutrals, his hair perpetually neat, and his expression often a mask of quiet contemplation, bordering on aloofness. He viewed life as a series of problems to be optimized, emotions as inefficient variables, and spontaneous fun as a distraction from meaningful pursuits. Emma, on the other hand, was a supernova of vibrant energy, a living, breathing testament to the power of personal brand and curated happiness. As a celebrated lifestyle influencer in New York City, her days were a whirlwind of brand collaborations, photo shoots, red carpet events, and the relentless pursuit of the perfect Instagram story. Her laugh was infectious, her confidence undeniable, and her fashion sense a masterclass in trendsetting. Emma collected friends like she collected designer handbags, effortlessly and with an air of knowing exactly what she wanted. She lived for the rush of a new post going viral, the thrill of a packed party, and the superficial yet exhilarating affirmation of her hundreds of thousands of followers. To Emma, life was a grand stage, and she was its dazzling, charismatic star. Her apartment half was a riot of color, fashion magazines, and beauty products, a stark contrast to Ethan's minimalist sanctuary. Their parents, loving but often overwhelmed by their children's opposing natures, had hoped that living together after their sudden passing would foster closeness. Instead, it magnified their differences into a constant, low-frequency hum of discord. Every shared meal was a potential minefield. Emma's vibrant, loud conversations on speakerphone clashed with Ethan's need for quiet concentration. Ethan's early morning coding sessions often meant he missed Emma's late-night returns from parties, leading to passive-aggressive notes about noise levels. Their shared refrigerator was a microcosm of their lives, Emma's shelves overflowing with exotic fruits, artisanal cheeses, and sparkling beverages, while Ethan's held neatly labeled meal prep containers and obscure health drinks. The tension had been building for weeks, a storm brewing beneath the surface of their forced cohabitation. It finally broke on Emma's 25th birthday, a lavish affair she had orchestrated at a trendy rooftop bar overlooking the city. Ethan had, begrudgingly, made an appearance, his presence a dark suit in a sea of glittering dresses and bespoke casual wear. He felt like an anthropologist observing an alien species, a grimace barely concealed beneath his polite smile as Emma held court, basking in the adoration of her friends and followers. As the night wore on, fueled by expensive champagne and a growing sense of injustice, Emma pulled Ethan aside, her voice a little slurred, but her eyes sharp with indignation. "Ethan, seriously, can you at least try to look like you're having fun? You're ruining my birthday vibe, as usual." Ethan, who had been attempting to engage in a conversation about blockchain technology with a fashion blogger, bristled. "Fun? Emma, what exactly is fun about this charade? This manufactured happiness, these vapid conversations, this obsession with appearances. It's also empty. You're just a useless virtual girl, floating through life on a cloud of likes and curated lies." The words, sharper and crueler than he intended, cut through the ambient music. Emma's eyes flashed, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. Useless? At least I live. At least I connect with people. You, Ethan, you don't understand anything beyond your precious code. You live like a robot, devoid of emotion, devoid of real human connection. You're a cold, unfeeling machine, stuck in your little box of logic, judging everyone who dares to actually feel something. Her voice rose, attracting the attention of nearby partygoers who pretended not to notice. The argument escalated, their voices growing louder, their words more venomous, each accusation a barbed arrow aimed at the other's deepest insecurities. Ethan lashed out about her superficiality, her dependence on external validation, her inability to grasp anything beyond the fleeting trends of social media. Emma retaliated, tearing into his emotional unavailability, his fear of vulnerability, his self-imposed isolation. Their years of simmering resentment boiled over, exposing the raw wounds of their fundamental differences. As their shouting reached a fever pitch, a sudden, blinding flash ripped across the night sky. It wasn't the distant, harmless kind of lightning. This was a direct, violent strike that seemed to cleave the very air above their heads. A deafening crack, like the world itself was splitting apart, reverberated through the building. The rooftop bar lights flickered wildly, then surged with an unnatural brilliance, casting their furious faces in an eerie, otherworldly glow. For a terrifying instant, their bodies felt charged, a tingling sensation coursing through their veins. Then, a blinding white light erupted around them, so intense it burned behind their eyelids. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy, smelling of ozone and something indefinably ancient. And then, just as suddenly, everything went utterly, completely black. The sounds of the party, the city, even their own angry voices, were swallowed by an absolute, profound silence. It was as if they had been erased from existence, suspended in an ethereal void, their furious souls momentarily disconnected from the world and each other. The first thing Ethan registered was an unfamiliar softness. Not the firm, almost Spartan mattress of his own bed, but a yielding embrace that cradled him. The scent in the room was also alien, a heady mix of rose and vanilla, far from the subtle citrus of his own minimalist space. He blinked, the morning light filtering gently through sheer, shimmering curtains, painting the room in hues of blush and gold. This wasn't his room. His room was functional, devoid of frivolous decor. This room, with its plush velvet accents, overflowing racks of brightly colored clothing, and an entire vanity table laden with shimmering bottles and brushes, screamed one name, Emma. A jolt of alarm, cold and sharp, shot through him. He sat bolt upright, only to be confronted by a disconcerting sight. His hands, delicate with long, manicured nails painted a soft peach, were not his own. He looked down at his chest, where soft, unfamiliar curves rose beneath the silk nightgown he was wearing. Panic, a sensation Ethan rarely allowed himself to indulge in, began to coil in his stomach. He scrambled out of bed, his legs feeling strangely light and uncoordinated, almost as if they belonged to someone else. He stumbled to the full-length mirror, his heart hammering against his ribs. The reflection that stared back was undeniably Emma. Her long, glossy brown hair cascaded around her shoulders, her familiar, expressive eyes, now widened in horrified disbelief, stared back at him. Her full lips, usually curved in a confident smile, were parted in a silent gasp. The slender frame, the distinct mole just above her left eyebrow, the subtle freckles across her nose, every detail was hers, not his. "No," he whispered, his voice a melodic, higher-pitched sound that was distinctly Emma's, a sound that twisted his gut with primal dread. "This can't be happening." He pinched himself hard. "Nothing." He slapped his face. The sting was real, but the reality remained unchanged. He was trapped in his sister's body. His mind, usually so adept at problem-solving, spun in a frantic, illogical vortex. He tried to think of a rational explanation, a logical sequence of events, But the only memory that surfaced was the blinding flash, the crack of lightning, and Emma's furious, beautiful face. Just then, a shrill, piercing scream erupted from the adjacent bedroom, his own bedroom, he realized with another sickening lurch. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated horror, a sound so primal it cut through the thick walls. It was Emma's scream, but laced with a distinctly masculine resonance he had never heard before. Meanwhile, in Ethan's usually tranquil bedroom, Emma was experiencing her own brand of existential crisis. She had woken up to the stark white ceiling, the scent of antiseptic and stale coffee, and the oppressive silence she had always associated with her brother. For a moment, she thought it was a nightmare, a cruel joke. But then she reached up to brush her hair from her eyes, and instead of her usual silken strands, her fingers encountered a short, somewhat unruly stubble. Her eyes flew open. She bolted upright, her arms feeling surprisingly heavy, her shoulders broader than she remembered. She glanced down and gasped. The chest that met her gaze was flat, undeniably masculine, covered in a light smattering of hair. The pajama bottoms she wore were loose, comfortable, and distinctly not hers. A wave of nausea washed over her. She stumbled out of bed, her limbs feeling strangely powerful yet clumsy, and made a beeline for the full-length mirror on the back of the closet door. The reflection that greeted her was so shocking, so utterly alien, that the scream tore from her throat before she could process it. Staring back at her was Ethan. His usually impassive face was contorted in a mask of sheer terror, his usually calm brown eyes wide and bloodshot. The neatly trimmed beard she had always teased him about now felt coarse against her, his face. His strong jawline, his square shoulders, his broad hands, all unmistakably Ethan's. H, she shrieked again, her voice a deep, resonant rumble that vibrated in his throat, a sound so foreign it sent shivers down his spine. What the actual F? Suddenly, a new, more immediate horror struck her. The urge to use the restroom was overwhelming. She rushed to Ethan's ensuite bathroom, her reflection in the mirror mocking her with its masculinity. She fumbled with the fly of the pajama bottoms, her mind reeling. And then, the horrifying realization dawned on her. This wasn't just about appearance. This was about everything. The mechanics of basic bodily functions, the very physical experience of being male, were suddenly his reality. She stood there, frozen in front of the toilet, a guttural groan escaping his lips. "Oh God, no," he whimpered, his mind a tangled mess of disgust and disbelief. This is going to be a nightmare. A moment later, Ethan, in Emma's body, burst into her former bedroom, her heart pounding. "Emma, what happened?" Her voice was a melodic alto, filled with an urgency that felt alien to her usually composed demeanor. Emma, in Ethan's body, spun around, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and pure comedic horror. "Ethan, you're me. And I'm you." He gestured wildly at his new body, then at her sister's, his own. "And I just realized I have to shave." The last word was punctuated with a shudder of profound revulsion. Ethan, Emma, stared, trying to reconcile the familiar face of his sister with the deep, booming voice coming from it. Her logical brain, despite the surreal circumstances, began to process. "The lightning," she muttered, almost to herself. "It must have been the lightning." "Lightning? Who cares about lightning, Ethan?" "Emma," Ethan roared, his voice echoing with uncharacteristic depth. "I'm a man. A hairy, unshaven man. And you're prancing around in my silk nightgown. You look ridiculous." Ethan, Emma, looked down at the soft fabric, feeling a blush creep up her neck. "Prancing? I'm panicking. And I don't prance." She tried to walk with her usual decisive stride, but Emma's, his slender hips swayed, and her movements felt unnaturally fluid. She tried to make her voice sound authoritative, but it came out as a surprisingly melodic, almost delicate tone. We need to figure this out logically. Emma, Ethan, threw her hands up in exasperation, a very Ethan-like gesture, but performed with Emma's usual theatrical flair. Logically? Ethan, look at me. I have stubble. And I have to shave. And what about going to the bathroom, Ethan? Do you even know how different it is? He gestured wildly again, his masculine arms feeling strangely powerful and unwieldy. Ethan, Emma flushed deeper, her mind recoiling from the intimate details. Emma, please. We have bigger problems than shaving or that. She tried to cross her arms, a gesture of defiance, but his arms felt too light, too graceful. She attempted to stand firmly, but her new center of gravity threw him, off, making him, wobble slightly. I feel like I'm wearing stilts, she mumbled, trying to adjust to the unfamiliar height and balance. Emma, Ethan, watched him, stumble, and despite the panic, a hysterical laugh bubbled up. It was Ethan's deep, rumbling laugh, but it was Emma's genuine amusement behind it. You look like a baby giraffe trying to walk, Ethan. A very confused baby giraffe in a silk nightgown. Emma glared, but the effect was softened by his naturally expressive features. And you, she countered, sound like a bear with a sore throat. What happened to your voice, Emma? It's your voice, you idiot. Emma, Ethan retorted, his own voice still shocking him, with its unexpected gravitas. He cleared his throat, trying to regain some semblance of his usual light tone, but it only resulted in a deeper rumble. This is insane. How am I supposed to talk to my followers with this voice? They'll think I'm doing some kind of deepfake prank. Emma suddenly remembered something else, a detail from her past life that would now be his present. Your followers, she muttered, the full weight of his public persona crashing down on him, She pulled out his phone, which was sitting on the nightstand, and scrolled through the notifications. Hundreds upon hundreds of messages, comments, likes, and DMs flooded the screen. You have hundreds of thousands of followers, she said, the sheer volume of digital interaction a terrifying prospect. How do you even manage all of this? Emma, Ethan just stared at him, his initial amusement fading into renewed horror. And you, he said, pointing a newly masculine finger at him, have to go to my live stream today. For that new makeup campaign. And you have to pretend to be me. Emma felt a cold sweat break out. Makeup. Live stream. Performance. All the things she meticulously avoided in her own life were now her immediate reality. No, she said flatly, the word devoid of his usual theatricality, sounding almost robotic. Absolutely not. I can't do that. You have to. Emma, Ethan insisted, grabbing now Ethan's, arm with surprising strength. It's a signed contract. If you don't show up, they'll sue me. They'll sue us. The realization of the logistical nightmare ahead of them settled heavily in the air. Trapped in each other's lives, forced to navigate worlds they utterly despised, with no clear path back. The silence in the room was no longer just the absence of sound, it was the chilling realization of their swapped reality. The initial shock gave way to a cold, hard dose of reality. Ethan, in Emma's body, and Emma, in Ethan's body, stood in the living room. The Manhattan skyline, usually a source of inspiration or quiet contemplation, now a mocking backdrop to their surreal predicament. The sheer absurdity of their situation was almost comical, yet the underlying fear was palpable. We can't tell anyone, Ethan, Emma stated, her voice surprisingly firm despite the high pitch. No one would ever believe us. We'd be institutionalized. Or become a viral sensation in the worst possible way. His logical mind, despite the fantastical circumstances, was already calculating risks and formulating a damage control plan. Emma, Ethan ran a hand through his new short hair, looking utterly bewildered. Not tell anyone? Ethan, how are we supposed to hide this? I'm supposed to be at a photoshoot at 10, and you have that big presentation on the quantum encryption project today, don't you? His usually carefree demeanor was replaced by a look of sheer terror. The weight of Ethan's responsibilities, which he had always dismissed as boring, now felt like a crushing burden. They quickly concocted a makeshift plan, born of desperation. They would pretend to be each other, at least until they could figure out how to reverse the swap. It was a terrible plan, riddled with potential pitfalls, but it was the only one they had. The first hurdle was Ethan's morning routine. Emma stared at his vast array of makeup, a veritable arsenal of powders, palettes, and brushes, with a look of utter bewilderment. What is all this for? She asked, picking up a shimmering tube. Ethan sighed, his deep voice laced with exasperation. It's called makeup, Ethan. You put it on your face. To look presentable. And for God's sake, don't touch that. It's my limited edition contour kit. He tried to demonstrate, but her large, uncoordinated fingers fumbled with a delicate brush. Look, just try to put on some foundation, blush, and mascara. And remember to arch the eyebrow like this. He attempted a feminine arch with Ethan's bushy brow, making it look more like a cartoon villain's leer. Emma reluctantly began, feeling like an alien trying to decipher human rituals. She ended up looking less like a glamorous influencer and more like a poorly executed clown, with foundation unevenly applied and blush streaked across her cheeks. This is impossible, she muttered, wiping at her face with a tissue, only smearing it further. Fine. Just try to look natural. Ethan conceded, giving up. And remember the voice. Higher pitch, more inflection, like you're constantly excited about something frivolous. Meanwhile, Ethan was struggling with Ethan's wardrobe. These clothes are so beige, he complained, holding up a plain gray dress shirt. Where's the color? The flair? Do you honestly own anything that isn't a shade of gray, blue, or white? He tried on one of Ethan's suits, and it felt stiff, restrictive, and utterly devoid of personality. He adjusted the tie, feeling a foreign knot of discomfort in his throat. They're functional, Ethan, Emma countered, her voice still a little wobbly. And for my job, they convey professionalism, not whatever it is you do. She gestured vaguely at his own array of sequin tops and distressed jeans. Their pact to keep the secret immediately faced its first major test when Lily, Emma's best friend and roommate turned unofficial assistant, arrived. Lily was a whirlwind of cheerful gossip and unwavering loyalty, and she had a sixth sense for anything amiss with Emma. Lily bounced into the apartment, phone already mid-sentence. Emma, darling, you won't believe the drama. Apparently, Chloe's latest post is a direct ripoff of your Coachella look from last year. I swear the girl has no originality. She stopped dead, noticing the twins in the living room. She looked at Ethan, Emma, who was nervously trying to adjust his hair, which felt impossibly long and heavy. She was wearing one of his more conservative, yet still distinctly feminine, floral dresses. Emma? You look different today. A little pale? And your outfit is surprisingly muted for a big live stream day. Lily's brow furrowed. Then she turned to Ethan, who was standing stiffly in Ethan's suit, trying to mimic his usual aloof posture, but failing spectacularly, looking more like a terrified robot. And Ethan? You're actually out of your coding cave? And in a suit before noon? What is going on here? Emma cleared her throat, trying to sound casual. Just a new look, Lily. Emma's trying out some minimalism. And I have an important presentation today, as always. She tried to offer his signature bright smile, but it came out as a stiff, slightly unsettling grimace. Ethan chimed in, his voice a surprisingly deep attempt at nonchalance. Yeah, just switching things up. You know, new year, new us. Very profound. He tried to wink at Lily, but it looked more like a spasm. Lily, however, was not convinced. She narrowed her eyes, observing them closely. Right. Knew us. Emma, did you get a bad batch of Botox? Your smile looks frozen. And Ethan, you just used the word profound. Are you feeling okay? Did you finally discover emotion? She paused, then added conspiratorially, and for some reason, Emma, you look like you're trying really hard to channel your brother, and Ethan, you look like you're trying really hard to channel, well, Emma. Are you guys messing with me? A glimmer of suspicion sparked in her eyes. No, they both blurted out simultaneously, one voice high and slightly strained, the other deep and booming, making Lily jump. Their immediate, panicked reaction only solidified Lily's suspicions, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what was amiss. She decided to keep a close eye on them. The morning quickly devolved into a series of cringeworthy performances. Ethan, Emma, had to host a live stream promoting a new line of organic skincare products. She sat in front of the ring light, his phone propped up, hundreds of comments already flooding the screen. Lily, ever the professional, was behind the camera, giving exasperated hand signals. Hey, beautiful people. Ethan, Emma, began, trying to inject his usual bubbly enthusiasm into the greeting. It sounded stilted, almost sarcastic. Today, we're talking about this amazing serum. It's got potent antioxidants that really target cellular regeneration processes. She stumbled over the words, her, mind automatically drifting to the scientific rather than the aesthetic. A comment popped up, is Emma sick? She sounds weird. Another, did she hire a robot to do her live stream? Ethan, Emma, tried to recover, holding up the product with his signature grace. It's fantastic for mitigating oxidative stress and optimizing epidermal barrier function. The comments section exploded with confused emojis. Lily slapped her forehead. Ethan, darling, it makes your skin glow and feel amazing, she whispered fiercely off camera. Ethan, Emma, just blinked, genuinely baffled. She was more comfortable debugging a kernel than explaining the merits of hyaluronic acid. She ended the stream abruptly, leaving fans stunned and confused. Meanwhile, Ethan, arrived at Nexus Tech, Ethan's elite software company in Midtown, a skyscraper of glass and steel that felt cold and intimidating. He walked into a meeting with Ethan's project team, a group of brilliant but socially awkward engineers who looked to Ethan as their quiet, guiding genius. Morning, Ethan, said David, the lead junior engineer, a perpetually anxious man with thick glasses. The quantum encryption module is encountering some unexpected recursive loops. We were hoping you could take a look. Ethan, stared blankly at the whiteboard covered in complex algorithms and equations. Recursive loops? Oh, right, those things. Have you tried turning it off and on again? He offered what he thought was a reassuring smile, but it looked more like a grimace on his face. The entire team exchanged bewildered glances. David stammered, Ethan, with respect, that's not really applicable to a quantum encryption module. We're talking about highly complex probabilistic algorithms. Ethan panicked. He sat down at his desk, staring at the lines of code on his multiple screens. It looked like a foreign language. He tried to type anything into the terminal, mashing random keys. What appeared on the screen was gibberish, an unholy mess of syntax errors. My God, Ethan, David said, peering over his shoulder, his eyes wide with horror. Are you intentionally trying to introduce a buffer overflow vulnerability? What is this code? It's worse than anything I've ever seen. We'll have to roll back 3 days of work just to fix this. Ethan, slumped in his chair, feeling a profound sense of inadequacy. He had always thought Ethan's job was easy, just sitting at a computer. Now, faced with the crushing responsibility and incomprehensible complexity, he realized how truly brilliant he was. The effortless confidence he exuded in his own world vanished, replaced by a cold knot of dread. The day continued in this vein of escalating disasters, each twin making a hash of the other's life. Ethan, Emma, struggled with fashion choices, accidentally posting an unflattering, unedited selfie on his story, causing a minor online frenzy. Ethan nearly crashed his company server by attempting to optimize a file structure based on color coordination. As they both returned to the apartment that evening, exhausted and utterly defeated, the silence between them was heavy with the weight of their secret. Lily, who had been sending Ethan increasingly suspicious texts all day, was waiting for them, perched on the edge of the sofa, arms crossed. "Okay," Lily said, her voice unusually serious. "Something is seriously wrong. Emma, you told your followers that beauty is a computational construct. And Ethan, your entire team just called me, saying you're having a psychotic break and coding like a chimpanzee on crack. What in the actual hell is going on with you two?" Her gaze, usually so light-hearted, was now piercing, full of concern and burgeoning alarm. The twins exchanged a terrified glance. Lily knew them too well. Their cover-up was already crumbling. The secret they were so desperate to keep was perilously close to being exposed. The days that followed were a blur of escalating mishaps and profound, unsettling revelations. The initial panic of the swap slowly began to morph into a reluctant, sometimes painful understanding. Living each other's lives wasn't just about mimicry, it was about truly stepping into their skin, seeing the world through their eyes, and experiencing the weight of their respective burdens. Ethan, in Emma's body, found himself drowning in a sea of public appearances, brand obligations, and the relentless demands of social media. He had to attend a launch party for a new fashion line, forced to mingle with designers, models, and other influencers, all of whom seemed to speak a secret language of trends and aesthetics. She tried to nod knowingly when someone discussed the fluidity of gender expression in this season's silhouettes, but internally, her mind was screaming for the elegant logic of a debugging session. Every morning, the ritual of applying makeup and choosing an outfit felt like an elaborate theatrical performance. She learned the subtle art of contouring from Lily, who, despite her suspicions, was patiently trying to coach Emma through her creative slump. Emma discovered the immense pressure his sister, faced to always look flawless, to always be on. She saw the endless comments, both adoring and cruel, that his sister, received, the constant scrutiny of his appearance, his words, his every move. She had always dismissed his sister's, life as superficial, but now she felt the suffocating weight of it, the constant performance, the fear of misstep, the gnawing anxiety of maintaining an impossibly perfect image. One evening, after a particularly draining day of forced smiles and vapid conversations at an influencer networking event, Emma collapsed onto his bed, kicking off a pair of excruciatingly high heels. She scrolled through his Instagram feed, seeing perfectly posed photos, witty captions, and thousands of enthusiastic comments. She realized the curated happiness was a shield, a carefully constructed illusion. Behind the dazzling smile and the effortless glamour, there was a profound sense of isolation. Emma, his sister, was surrounded by people, but how many of them truly saw her? How many cared beyond his follower count or his ability to drive engagement? She felt a pang of unexpected empathy, a realization that his sister's, life, far from being carefree, was a gilded cage. The constant need for external validation, the ephemeral nature of online fame, the quiet terror of irrelevance, these were the unseen burdens his sister, carried every day. She even found herself, missing her own quiet nights of coding, the genuine satisfaction of building something tangible and functional, rather than chasing fleeting likes. Meanwhile, Emma, in Ethan's body, was facing his own brutal awakening at Nexus Tech. The world of algorithms, data structures, and complex system architecture was a bewildering labyrinth. He spent hours staring at his computer screens, the lines of code blurring into an incomprehensible mess. David, the lead junior engineer, was constantly seeking his input, presenting him with intricate problems that he could only respond to with panicked guesswork or vague platitudes. His attempts to jazz up his workspace, adding a vibrant succulent, a framed inspirational quote, even attempting to coordinate his monitor backgrounds, were met with bewildered stares from his colleagues. He even tried to initiate a team-building exercise by suggesting they all go for karaoke after work. The suggestion was met with awkward silence, followed by David politely explaining that they had a critical server migration scheduled that evening. Ethan began to understand the sheer intellectual rigor her brother, applied to his work, the painstaking detail, the deep well of knowledge that allowed her brother, to navigate this complex world with such apparent ease. He had always thought her brother's life was boring, devoid of passion. But now he saw the quiet satisfaction her brother, must derive from solving a difficult problem, the pride in creating something that worked, that made a difference. One particularly frustrating afternoon, after accidentally deleting a critical line of code and nearly causing a system crash, Ethan walked out of Nexus Tech feeling utterly defeated. The city, usually his vibrant playground, now seemed to mock his incompetence. He instinctively gravitated towards a quiet, unassuming coffee shop nestled on a tree-lined street in the West Village, a place her brother, often mentioned in passing as my thinking spot. He ordered a black coffee, just as her brother, always did, and found a secluded corner table. The air was filled with the gentle hum of conversation, the clatter of cups, and the rich aroma of roasted beans. It was a stark contrast to the buzzing, artificial energy of his own world. As he sat there, trying to process the day's failures, his hand brushed against the wallet in his jacket pocket. Curiosity, a trait he had in abundance, made him pull it out. Tucked away in a small, slightly worn compartment was a faded photograph. It was a picture of a younger Ethan and Emma, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, laughing unselfconsciously as they built a sandcastle on a beach. Their faces, free of the cynicism and resentment that would later cloud their relationship, were bright with pure joy. Ethan stared at the photo, a sudden lump forming in his throat. He remembered that day, a family vacation to the Hamptons. It was before their paths diverged so dramatically, before the constant arguments and misunderstandings. He remembered Ethan, her brother, meticulously planning the turrets of the sandcastle, and him, adding shells and seaweed with wild abandon. They had been a team then, two halves of a whole. He had always thought Ethan, her brother, was so detached, so focused on his own world that he rarely thought of anything beyond his work. The idea that he carried a childhood photo of them both, tucked away in his wallet, a quiet memento of a simpler time, was a revelation. It contradicted everything he thought he knew about him, her brother. It hinted at a deep, unspoken sentimentality beneath her brother's, stoic exterior. Tears pricked at Ethan's eyes, a feeling so foreign in his body, yet so profoundly real. He realized that Ethan, her brother, beneath the logical veneer, harbored a quiet longing for connection, for the bond they once shared. Her brother's life wasn't just empty, it was lonely. Her brother, wasn't unfeeling, her brother, was guarded. The image of the two of them, carefree and united, flashed in his mind, a painful reminder of what they had lost. That night, back in the apartment, they met in the kitchen, both looking utterly drained. Emma, was removing her makeup, the intricate layers of glamour disappearing to reveal his exhausted face. Ethan, was meticulously shaving, a grim expression on his face, the razor feeling alien in his hands. You know, Ethan, Emma said, her voice quiet, lacking Emma's, his usual dramatic flair. It's not easy what you do. All the pressure. The constant need to be perfect. The fake smiles. It's exhausting. Ethan paused mid-shave, looking at him, Ethan's face, Emma's eyes. And yours, he responded, his voice surprisingly soft despite its depth. It's not just numbers, is it? It's intricate. It requires so much focus. And it's lonely. You always seemed so self-sufficient, but you're not, are you? He thought of the photo in the wallet, the little piece of their shared past her brother, carried with him. A fragile bridge of understanding began to form between them, built on the shared weight of their swapped lives. The anger and resentment hadn't vanished entirely, but they were now tinged with a new, unwelcome emotion, empathy. They were living each other's hidden struggles, and in doing so, they were beginning to see the true cost of their animosity. The world had forced them into a mirror, and they were both horrified and humbled by the reflections staring back. The fragile piece of their newfound, if reluctant, empathy was shattered with spectacular force. It was a Tuesday, a day that started like any other in their surreal existence, but ended in a cataclysm of public exposure and legal jeopardy. Ethan, in Emma's body, was struggling through another sponsored post, attempting to feign excitement about a new range of artisanal teacups. Her heart wasn't in it, and the forced cheer sounded increasingly hollow. Lily, ever present, was behind the camera, looking more frustrated than usual. Emma, darling, less existential dread, more, darling, I simply must have this teacup, she urged, trying to prompt a more authentic-sounding delivery. Ethan, Emma sighed. It's just, what's the purpose? It's a teacup. It holds tea. The design aesthetics are rudimentary. She was growing increasingly weary of the performative nature of his life, the constant need to fabricate enthusiasm for consumer goods. She missed the objective truth of code, the clarity of a bug-free program. In a moment of genuine exasperation, bordering on an existential crisis, she decided to record a quick, unedited story to his close friends list, hoping for some semblance of genuine connection, a small outlet for her mounting frustration. She rarely used this feature, usually relying on Lily to manage all of his social media interactions. She held his phone up, his face, devoid of its usual influencer filter, looking tired and uncharacteristically vulnerable. You know, she began, her voice low and earnest, a stark contrast to his usual bubbly tone. This whole thing, it's a lot. The constant performance, the superficiality. It's not real. I'm not the Emma Carter you think I am. In fact, I'm not Emma Carter at all. She stared directly into the camera, a flicker of raw, unvarnished truth in her eyes. This isn't my life. This isn't my skin. I wish I could tell you more, but I can't. She ended the story with a sigh, feeling a strange mixture of relief and regret. She intended for it to be private, visible only to a handful of trusted individuals. But in her technological brilliance, yet social media ineptitude, Emma had made a fatal error. Instead of posting to close friends, she had accidentally posted it to his main public story, where it was immediately visible to hundreds of thousands of followers. Within minutes, the internet exploded. The unedited, raw video of Emma Carter confessing she wasn't Emma Carter went viral. Screenshots were taken, comments flooded in, conspiracy theories abounded. Emma Carter has a clone. Is this an AI deepfake prank? She looks genuinely distressed. Is she being held hostage? The video was reposted, analyzed, meme-feed. Emma Carter, the queen of curated reality, had just unintentionally unveiled a deeply unsettling, unscripted truth. Lily, who was briefly out of the room, returned to a barrage of notifications on her own phone. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the trending topic. She rushed to Emma, who was calmly sipping the artisanal tea, utterly oblivious. Emma, What did you do? Lily shrieked, snatching the phone. She saw the video, already millions of views deep. You posted it to your story. The main story. Not close friends. Oh my god, you just told the entire internet you're not you. Ethan, Emma's teacup clattered to the floor, shattering. The blood drained from her face. What? No. I set it to private. I swear. The cold dread that had been a constant companion since the swap now intensified into a full-blown panic attack. The apartment building, usually a sanctuary, quickly became a besieged fortress. Paparazzi, alerted by the viral video, descended like vultures, their cameras flashing relentlessly. Reporters clamored at the building's entrance, shouting questions. Fans, a strange mix of concerned and morbidly curious, gathered outside, holding signs. Emma Carter, or rather, the person inhabiting her body, was the biggest story in New York. While Ethan, Emma, was trapped in this public relations nightmare, Emma, in Ethan's body, was facing a crisis of a different, but equally dire nature. Earlier that day, still trying to grasp the complexities of Ethan's, her brother's, work, Emma, Ethan, had been reviewing his old contracts and accounts. He had seen a recurring expense on his company credit card, a substantial monthly payment to a modeling agency. Ethan, her brother, had told him, that this was a legitimate business expense related to a marketing campaign her brother, was developing for NexusTech's new client, where models were used for product visualization. However, Ethan, still thinking with the influencer mindset and not fully understanding the nuances of corporate accounting or the specific terms of her brother's, contracts, had seen the sum and decided to optimize it. He assumed Ethan, her brother, was simply overpaying, or perhaps not getting the best deal. With his usual impulsive confidence, he had tried to renegotiate the terms, and in doing so, had accidentally authorized a large, unauthorized advance payment to a completely different, unapproved agency, one he had found online promising better rates for talent. The modeling agency for her brother's, legitimate client was already under contract, and this new, sudden payment to an unknown entity raised serious red flags. The finance department at NexusTech, already on high alert due to Ethan's increasingly erratic behavior, immediately flagged the transaction. It looked like a clear case of corporate fraud. Within hours, Ethan found himself in a sterile, intimidating police interrogation room across from two stern-faced detectives. Mr. Carter, Detective Miller began, her voice calm but firm, we have evidence of an unauthorized wire transfer from NexusTech's corporate account, initiated from your terminal. This is a substantial sum of money directed to an unapproved vendor. Can you explain this? Ethan's mind raced. He tried to conjure her brother's, calm, logical demeanor, but all he felt was raw panic. Unauthorized? No. I was just trying to be efficient. It was a better deal. I saw the numbers and I thought, Ethan, you're losing money here, man. He rambled, his deep voice cracking with nerves. Detective Davies, a burly man with a skeptical gaze, leaned forward. So you, a senior software engineer, decided to unilaterally rewrite a vendor contract and divert company funds based on a better deal you found online, without any proper authorization? Do you even know what that modeling agency is, Mr. Carter? Ethan gulped. He had no idea. He had just seen the low percentage. It's a talent agency. For models. For the marketing things. To visualize the products, he stammered, feeling increasingly cornered. The detectives exchanged a look. Mr. Carter, this agency is not approved. And the transaction appears to be a direct violation of your corporate credit card policy and several financial regulations. This could lead to serious charges of corporate espionage or embezzlement. Ethan's blood ran cold. Embezzlement? He just wanted to save Ethan, her brother, some money. He felt a sudden, profound realization of the grave consequences of his impulsive actions. His social media world, with its carefully curated images, felt a million miles away. This was real, with real legal repercussions. Back at the apartment, the doorbell rang incessantly and paparazzi flashes illuminated the living room through the blinds. Ethan, Emma, trembling, peeked through a slit in the curtains. She saw a sea of faces, all desperate for a glimpse of the not Emma Carter. Lily was frantically trying to contact their PR team, but they were already in crisis mode. Just then, her phone rang. Emma, his sister, was calling from his phone. Ethan, Emma, answered, her voice barely a whisper. Emma? What's happening? The whole world thinks I'm an imposter. Ethan's deep voice crackled through the phone, sounding hoarse and utterly terrified. Ethan, I'm at the precinct. They think I'm embezzling from your company. They're talking about corporate espionage. And I don't even know what that means. The twins, separated by circumstance but united by their mutual chaos, were at the epicenter of a storm. Their secret, meant to protect them, had instead unleashed a torrent of unforeseen consequences. They were not just living each other's lives, they were destroying them, one dramatic, accidental blunder at a time. The world was watching, judging, and neither of them had any idea how to escape the spiraling drama. The chaos of public exposure and legal entanglements forced the twins into a desperate huddle. Emma, in Ethan's body, was eventually released from the precinct, though under strict instructions to cooperate with a full corporate investigation and not leave the city. Ethan, in Emma's body, had managed to give a flustered, non-committal statement to the press, orchestrated by a panicked Lily and his PR team, dismissing the viral video as a misguided artistic statement and a commentary on the nature of identity in the digital age. It convinced no one. Back in their apartment, which felt less like a home and more like a besieged bunker, the twins sat across from each other, surrounded by the remnants of his shattered teacup and the metaphorical debris of their fractured lives. Lily, loyal but utterly bewildered, had gone home, promising to figure something out, but clearly at her wit's end. This is insane, Ethan groaned, rubbing his temples. My entire brand is ruined. Your company thinks you're a criminal mastermind. How do we get out of this? Ethan, Emma, usually the picture of stoicism, looked utterly defeated. I don't know, Emma. My logical frameworks are failing. We've tried everything. It has to be more than just the lightning strike. There has to be a catalyst, something that triggered it and something that can reverse it. As Emma spoke, her gaze drifted to a small, unassuming wooden box on his vanity table. It was a simple, handcrafted box that their mother had given them years ago, containing 2 identical silver necklaces. Each necklace featured a small, intricately carved compass charm. Their mother had given them to them on their 10th birthday, just before she started falling ill. These aren't just pretty, she had told them, her eyes twinkling. They're special. They'll help you to find your way and always understand each other, no matter how far apart you feel. They had worn them constantly as children, but as teenagers, their paths diverged, and the necklaces had been relegated to the forgotten corners of their jewelry boxes. Ethan's, her brother's, had ended up in a drawer in his room, while Emma's, his, had been tucked into this wooden box, a sentimental keepsake he rarely looked at. Now, however, the memory of their mother's words resonated with an uncanny significance. The necklaces, Emma suddenly said, her voice low, a flicker of scientific curiosity igniting in her weary eyes. Mother's necklaces. She said they would help us understand each other. What if they're not just symbolic? She pulled his, out of the box. Ethan looked at the small, silver compass charm, a faint memory stirring. He remembered his own necklace, still tucked away in a dusty corner of Ethan's, her brother's, old desk drawer, an artifact from a forgotten childhood. You mean, a magical necklace? Ethan, you're a tech engineer, not a fantasy novelist. Ethan scoffed, but a seed of doubt had been planted. The world had already proven itself to be far stranger than logic dictated. Magic is simply science we don't yet understand, Ethan, Emma, replied, a spark of her, old, analytical self returning. And our situation is far beyond any known scientific explanation. It's the only common denominator beyond the lightning strike that connects us directly to this phenomenon. Our mother always had a fascination with ancient artifacts, with things that held stories and energy. They found Ethan's, her brother's, necklace, Emma, Ethan, having to search through a meticulously organized but dust-laden drawer in his bedroom. As their fingers brushed over the cool metal of the twin charms, an inexplicable tingling sensation shot up their arms. It wasn't painful, but a strange, almost electric hum. We need to find out where she got these, Emma, Ethan, decided, feeling a surge of determination. This was the first tangible lead they had, the first glimmer of a solution beyond simply enduring their swapped existences. They pored over old photo albums, letters, and journals their mother had left behind. Finally, in a faded diary entry from just before their 10th birthday, they found it, a small, almost illegible scribble mentioning a quaint antique shop in Greenwich Village, the amulet and the anomaly, where she had found the perfect gifts for my little explorers. The next morning, avoiding the lingering paparazzi by using a back entrance and hailing separate, nondescript taxis, they made their way to Greenwich Village. The shop was exactly as their mother's diary described, a dusty, cluttered treasure trove, smelling of old wood, incense, and forgotten stories. Shelves overflowed with exotic trinkets, ancient maps, and arcane books. Behind a counter piled high with silver jewelry and shimmering crystals sat an old woman. Her face was a roadmap of wrinkles, her eyes a startling, piercing blue that seemed to see right through them. She wore a collection of chunky silver rings on gnarled fingers, and a heavy, ornate pendant rested on her chest. "Can I help you, dearies?" she asked, her voice raspy but kind, a faint smile playing on her lips, as if she already knew why they were there. Ethan, Emma, stepped forward, holding up his necklace. "We're looking for information about these. Our mother purchased them here, years ago. She said they were special." The old woman's gaze sharpened, moving from Ethan, Emma to Emma, Ethan, and back again, a knowing glint in her eyes. The twin compasses," she murmured, her voice laced with ancient wisdom. "Yes, your mother was a remarkable woman. She understood their true purpose." She picked up one of the necklaces, examining the intricate carving. "She told us they would help us understand each other," Emma, Ethan, offered, his deep voice sounding oddly deferential in the hushed atmosphere of the shop. "But we seem to have taken that quite literally. We switched bodies. We think it might be because of these and the lightning." The old woman chuckled, a low, melodic sound that seemed to vibrate through the dusty shop. "Switch bodies, you say? How fascinating." "Yes, the energies of the universe work in mysterious ways, especially when amplified by a strong emotional current and an unexpected surge of natural power." She looked at their earnest, anxious faces. "But these necklaces, they do not switch bodies, dearies. That is merely a manifestation of your deepest desires, brought forth by external forces." Her gaze lingered on them, her blue eyes seeming to bore into their souls. "Your mother was right. They're special, but not in the way you think." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, but carrying immense weight. "It does not help you exchange your skins, dearies. It helps you exchange your hearts." Ethan, Emma, and Emma, Ethan, stared at her, the words echoing in the silence of the shop. "Exchange our hearts?" Ethan, Emma, repeated, her logical mind struggling to process the metaphor. "Indeed," the old woman confirmed, her smile softening. "It is a conduit, a spiritual amplifier. It forces you to truly inhabit the emotional landscape of the other. To walk in their shoes, yes, but more importantly, to feel what they feel. To see their world not just from their perspective, but with their very soul. The external swap, that was merely the universe's rather dramatic way of giving you both a push." She gestured at the necklaces. The true magic of these compasses is not in their ability to transpose flesh, but to guide the soul. They compel empathy. They force true understanding. And only when that understanding is complete, when your hearts have truly exchanged their lessons and learned to beat in genuine harmony, will the external dissonance resolve itself. She looked directly at them, her eyes shining with profound wisdom. You are not trapped by these necklaces, dearies. You are guided by them. They will return you to yourselves only when you have truly found each other, within yourselves and within each other's lives. The truth of her words settled over them, a revelation more profound than any magical spell. It wasn't about reversing a physical change, it was about internal transformation. They had been forced into each other's lives, not as a punishment, but as a lesson. A lesson in empathy, understanding, and the true meaning of connection. The old woman's words offered not a quick fix, but a challenging, emotional path forward. Their journey was far from over. In fact, it had just truly begun. The old woman's words resonated deeply, settling over them like a profound, undeniable truth. It wasn't about a magic spell or a scientific anomaly to be reversed. It was about growth, about truly seeing and understanding each other. The external chaos, the paparazzi, the legal threats, suddenly seemed secondary to this internal journey they were compelled to undertake. The swap wasn't a curse, it was a profound, if unwelcome, lesson. Back in the apartment, a new atmosphere permeated their shared space. The tension that had once been a constant hum was replaced by a fragile, almost reverent quiet. They looked at each other, not as adversaries trapped in a bizarre predicament, but as fellow travelers on an arduous, enlightening path. Ethan, in Emma's body, decided to confront the public relations disaster head-on, but with a new approach. Instead of damage control, she aimed for authenticity. She scheduled another live stream, much to Lily's initial apprehension. This time, however, there would be no pretense of selling products or faking enthusiasm. When the live stream began, his followers were expecting more erratic behavior, another cryptic message, or perhaps a full-blown meltdown. Instead, they saw Emma Carter's, his face, serious and unadorned, devoid of heavy makeup or filters. Emma took a deep breath, her hands, his delicate hands, clasped in front of him, her. Hi everyone, she began, her voice, his melodic voice, sounding unusually grounded and sincere. I know things have been confusing lately. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of questions. And I can't give you all the answers you might be looking for, not in the way you expect. She paused, looking directly into the camera, a profound sincerity in his eyes. But what I can tell you is this: sometimes, life puts you in situations where you're forced to see the world from a completely different perspective. To literally walk in someone else's shoes. And it teaches you things you never thought you'd learn. She spoke about the pressure of maintaining an image, the loneliness of constant performance, and the human need for genuine connection beyond likes and comments. She spoke about judging others prematurely, about mistaking outward appearances for inner reality. She even alluded, subtly, to the importance of family, of understanding those closest to you, even when they seem entirely different. She didn't confirm the body swap, but framed it as a powerful metaphor, a journey of self-discovery. The comments section, usually a flurry of demands and superficial remarks, was slowly transformed. At first, there was confusion, then curiosity, and finally, a wave of genuine emotion. She's being so real right now, one user commented. I feel this, another wrote. It's not about the products, it's about the message, said a third. Emma, usually so averse to emotional displays, found herself, moved by the outpouring of empathy and understanding from strangers. She realized the true power of his platform wasn't just in selling things, but in connecting with people on a human level when used authentically. She concluded the live stream not with a product pitch, but with a heartfelt thank you for listening, for seeing past the surface. The video went viral again, but this time for an entirely different reason. It was hailed as a courageous act of vulnerability, a powerful message about empathy and authenticity in an increasingly superficial world. News outlets, initially keen to expose a scandal, instead reported on Emma Carter's surprising pivot towards meaningful content. For the first time, Emma, felt a genuine sense of purpose in his life, a satisfaction that resonated deeper than debugging a perfect line of code. Meanwhile, Emma, in Ethan's body, was dedicating herself to fixing the mess he had created at Nexus Tech. The corporate investigation was ongoing, but he was determined to prove her brother's, innocence and by extension, his own. He spent grueling hours learning about her brother's, projects, poring over code he barely understood, asking David and the other engineers endless questions. He used his natural charisma and networking skills, refined from years as an influencer, to soothe ruffled feathers in the finance department and explain, albeit vaguely, the misunderstanding. He discovered a critical flaw in the quantum encryption module that her brother, had been struggling with before the swap, a subtle logical paradox that even her brother, in her brother's methodical approach, had overlooked. Ethan, with his less structured, more intuitive way of thinking, saw the problem from a different angle. He didn't approach it with code first, but by visualizing the flow of data, treating it almost like a narrative. He realized that the recursive loops weren't a bug, but a protective measure against a potential, very subtle, brute force attack. Her brother, had been trying to fix a bug that was actually a feature, designed to trip up unauthorized access with deliberately complex, self-modifying loops. Ethan, spent days, fueled by copious amounts of black coffee, of course, working tirelessly to refine the module's existing architecture to make this protective mechanism even more robust and efficient. He collaborated closely with David, humbly admitting his initial ignorance, but demonstrating an uncanny ability to grasp the larger conceptual framework, even if the intricate coding details still eluded him. He leveraged his strong presentation skills to explain the new, improved design to the senior management, using analogies and visual aids that made the complex concepts accessible even to the non-technical executives. The project, which had been stalled, was suddenly back on track, not just functional, but significantly enhanced. The CEO, a stern, no-nonsense woman, personally called Ethan, into her office. "Ethan," she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration, "what you've done with the encryption module is remarkable. The ingenuity, the foresight, it's truly exceptional. And your explanation of the misunderstanding with the finance department, while still unorthodox, has been compelling. You've shown a side of yourself I never knew existed. Welcome back, Mr. Carter. And well done." Ethan felt a surge of pride, a feeling far more profound than any number of likes on social media. He had earned this recognition through genuine effort, through understanding a world he had once dismissed as dull and inconsequential. He realized that her brother's, life wasn't empty. It was filled with intellectual challenge, with the satisfaction of creation, and with the quiet respect of her brother's, peers. One evening, both exhausted but strangely content, they were in the kitchen, preparing a meal together, a rare occurrence in their original lives. Emma, was expertly chopping vegetables, having learned the surprisingly satisfying rhythm of his gourmet cooking. Ethan, was carefully measuring out spices, guided by her brother's, precise, almost scientific instructions for the perfect balance of flavors. They talked, not about their swap or their troubles, but about their day, about the small victories and insights they had gained. Emma, shared a funny anecdote about a fan who had recognized her, in a coffee shop and complimented her brave vulnerability. Ethan, recounted the CEO's praise, a beaming smile spreading across his face. And then, unexpectedly, They both looked at each other, and a genuine, unforced laugh bubbled up from them simultaneously. Emma's laugh, his, light and melodic, intertwined with Ethan's laugh, Ethan's, her brother's, deep and resonant. It was a sound of true, shared joy, a melody of two souls finally in harmony. In that exact moment, as their laughter filled the apartment, a soft, warm light began to emanate from their chests, where the twin compass necklaces rested. The light pulsed, growing brighter, swirling around them in a gentle vortex. It wasn't the violent, electric flash of the lightning strike, but a comforting, golden glow. The air hummed with a benevolent energy, smelling faintly of ozone and something akin to a blooming flower. The apartment, the city outside, seemed to fade, replaced by the soft, enveloping brilliance. They looked at each other, their laughter dying down, replaced by a sense of awe and wonder. There was no fear, only a quiet knowing. This was it. This was the moment. The light intensified, enveloping them completely, a pure, white warmth that suffused every fiber of their being, gently pulling them into a comforting embrace. The first sensation was one of profound peace. The golden light faded as gently as it had appeared, dissolving into the soft, ethereal glow of a New York City dawn. Ethan woke with a jolt, a familiar weight settling over him. He blinked, the subtle scent of his own minimalist bedroom, the cool touch of his own practical sheets, comforting and real. He reached up, feeling the short, neatly trimmed hair that was undeniably his own. He flexed his fingers, the broad, strong hands that had meticulously typed millions of lines of code. He was back. He was in his own body. A sudden, sharp gasp from the adjacent room confirmed his suspicion. He sprang out of bed, his gait now firm and purposeful, his own legs moving with their accustomed ease. He rushed into what was unmistakably Emma's bedroom, bathed in the same gentle morning light. Emma was sitting upright in her plush bed, her long, glossy hair fanned out around her, her silk nightgown clinging to her slender frame. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, met his. She reached up, touching her face, her neck, her own delicate hands trembling. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice, her actual voice, light and melodic, filled with a mixture of awe and relief. I'm me." Ethan stood at the doorway, a genuine, unburdened smile spreading across his face, a smile Emma had rarely, if ever, seen directed at her. "And I'm me," he replied, his voice, his own deep, calm voice, a familiar anchor in the surreal morning. They simply stared at each other for a long moment, the familiar faces now imbued with new meaning, new depth. The old animosity, the petty irritations, the years of misunderstanding, they were gone, replaced by a profound, undeniable connection. They weren't just brother and sister, they were two souls who had truly walked in each other's shoes, who had seen each other's hidden struggles and silent triumphs. They had exchanged their hearts, just as the old woman had said. Emma scrambled out of bed, her movements light and graceful once more, and rushed towards him. For the first time in years, perhaps even decades, they embraced. It wasn't awkward or hesitant. It was a hug born of shared experience, of hard-won empathy, a silent promise of understanding. Later, as the sun climbed higher, casting long, golden shadows across their meticulously maintained apartment, they sat on the sofa, sipping actual coffee, Ethan's black, Emma's a frothy latte. They recounted the vivid details of their swap, the hilarity, the terror, the profound lessons learned. Emma described the sheer frustration of trying to write code, the quiet dignity of Ethan's world. Ethan spoke of the suffocating pressure of public life, the unexpected depth he found in Emma's connection with her followers. They both wore their twin compass necklaces, now gleaming softly against their skin. The charms felt warm, almost alive, a silent testament to the journey they had completed. "So," Emma said, a playful glint in her eyes, "I guess you finally understand what it's like to wear heels for 12 hours straight, huh, robot?" Ethan chuckled, a genuine, warm sound. "And you, Emma, finally understand the quiet satisfaction of solving a truly elegant problem, rather than just chasing fleeting trends. He paused, then added, and I think I saw your worth more clearly when I was living it. Emma's smile softened. And I saw yours. It's not empty, Ethan. It's profound. And you're not unfeeling. You're just quiet. The doorbell buzzed. It was Lily, looking anxious, but relieved to see them both, apparently back in their rightful bodies and looking remarkably normal. They exchanged a knowing glance. The world might still be confused, but they had found their truth. Together, they walked out of the apartment, stepping into the vibrant energy of a New York City morning. The city, once a battleground for their differences, now felt like a shared adventure. They weren't just twins, they were companions, allies, two halves made whole. A few weeks later, Ethan is at his desk at Nexus Tech, meticulously debugging a complex system. His phone buzzes. He picks it up, seeing a notification from Emma's, his sister's, fan account. It's a DM. OMG, Emma. Your new message about empathy was so inspiring. I never knew you had such a deep side. By the way, I'm a huge fan and single. Just saying, winking face. Ethan sighs, a long-suffering groan, then types a quick, professional reply. Thank you for your kind words. Emma is currently focusing on her mental health journey and appreciates your understanding. Please direct all further inquiries to her management. He shakes his head, a wry smile playing on his lips. Some things, even a body swap, couldn't completely erase. Meanwhile, Emma is at a lavish influencer event, chatting animatedly with a fashion designer. She sips a sparkling drink, looking utterly at home. Suddenly, she feels a strange, phantom sensation. Her hand instinctively goes to her groin, a momentary, almost primal confusion flashing across her face. She quickly recomposes herself, realizing it's just a lingering memory. Honestly, she mutters to herself, a mischievous glint in her eye, I almost forgot what it felt like to, well, standing up. It was quite an experience, though. She winks at an imaginary Ethan, then smoothly transitions back to discussing sustainable fabrics with the designer, a faint, private smile dancing on her lips. Some memories, however absurd, were impossible to shake.